For the first story, am I the a-hole for being completely honest to my biological parents about how my childhood was really awful? I was given up for adoption right after I was born. Unfortunately, my adoption didn't work out, and I grew up in foster care until I turned 18. I'm now 19 and in college. In February, I got a Facebook message from a man claiming to be my father. We messaged back and forth, and while I kept a lot of my childhood details private, we did make plans to meet him and my mother. They weren't married to each other, by the way. When I got to the restaurant, I was very shocked and honestly upset to find my father and mother had brought their spouses, as well as their children, to surprise me. My father's mother, so my grandmother, was also there. I was already feeling very emotional about the whole thing, and seeing everyone there didn't help. So, I sat through an hour of listening to them sharing all about their lives, while I faked smile through everything. Honestly, I feel very jealous that they had kids they really loved, and how they all had really happy lives after ditching me. Then, they started asking about me and my parents, and how my Facebook gave very little away about my life. I basically lost it, and started crying like a little bee, lol, and told them how crappy my adoptive parents were, and how crappy foster life was. I was pretty snarky and sarcastic when I said that I'm glad their lives worked out for them, because mine sure as hell didn't. I couldn't stop crying, and my father had to drop me back home. He was very apologetic. I feel very crappy about it. I made my mother and father cry at the restaurant. They were really nice people. I got a few messages from my mother and father separately where they've been apologizing and if they could make it up to me. My mother in particular seems really upset by everything, and I hate that I may have messed up her happy life. Her last message basically said that she's been unable to sleep and wants to see me again. I've been ignoring their messages and just been focusing on school instead. Am I the a-hole? Maybe I should have been more honest before the meetup. Now for the top comments. No a-holes here. You have a right to your life. And they have probably spent the last 19 years clinging to the idea that you had a better life than they could give you, being hit by the reality that their happiness now is built on the opportunities they had by condemning you to misery has probably hurt them quite a bit, but that's not your fault. Yeah, but they're pretty close to being the a-hole for bringing everyone with them to what should have been a personal meeting. They messed up, sure. Doesn't seem like they were being intentionally malicious though. Stupid and hurtful, but I wouldn't judge them a-holes for it. No a-holes here, but it was a bad call. Not the a-hole. Bringing their families with them must have felt like a kick on the teeth, because it was a glimpse of something you never had. It was too much too soon. I can completely understand why this was overwhelming. Yes, that's just cruel, even if Opie was raised in a happy household, not the a-hole. The bio parents sounded like they thought Opie had a good life with adoptive parents and wanted to link the families. To their horror, that wasn't the case. They are still a-holes though, not the a-hole. Hey, I hope you're alright. This sounds massively complex and as if there is a lot of trauma. I don't think this is a case for this sub. Please reach out to a friend. Maybe your university campus has a psychologist you could speak to. Wishing you all the best, an internet stranger. Thanks. I've just been very busy with school, and it's kept my mind off this situation. I'll get therapy once I graduate and have health insurance. Lol. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not meeting my bio family and responding to the message they sent me with a simple no thanks? I am not sure how to start a post off, but I'll try to give a bit of background information, I guess. Oh, and in any case it is important, I am 25 male, and the parents are probably in their late 40s to early 50s. Long story short, I was put up for adoption by these people, got adopted, got placed out of my adoptive parents' house when I was 9, and spent the remainder of my youth in and out of foster homes and placements. Fortunately, I never had that much of a problem. I quickly got used to it, and when I was 18, I managed to get myself into college and it all worked out for me. I got a good job now, a lovely girlfriend, a ton of friends who I consider family, and I am happy to be honest. I ended up receiving a very long message from a woman in one of my social media accounts, and it boiled down to a load of excuses as to why they gave me up, primarily centering around their age, early 20s, conservative upbringing, they weren't married, and their parents forcing them. They then started telling me about themselves and what they referred to as my siblings. They finally finished that off with stating their desire to meet me and that they wanted me to be a part of their family. Now, I don't hold much against these people. I know it may seem like that, but I don't. It's a case of not caring, if anything. I have never longed to meet them, search them out, or anything of that sort. I just never had a desire to know them. It wouldn't change anything anyway. I ended up responding with a simple no thanks, and followed that up by telling them not to contact me anymore. I figured that would be the end of it, but I couldn't be more wrong. The following days, I started receiving messages from these siblings uttering their desire to meet me. When I told them the same, that turned into accusations of making their parents cry. I ended up blocking them all, which resulted in messages from their friends and new accounts, so I eventually just stopped using the account. It is obvious these people want to meet me and are hurt by my refusal, so am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's your life and your decision. They give up all rights to you 25 years ago, and they don't automatically get a pass when they start feeling bad about it. It's your choice. That's the thing. I just don't care to meet them. They've showed you how right you are not to meet them by harassing you. If this keeps up, report them to the police and get a restraining order. You owe these people nothing. Best of luck in everything. Not the a-hole. Their attempted manipulation and intimidation to get you to meet them is a huge red flag. You're doing fine and are happy. I say no need to involve a bunch of family. Well, to be honest, I wasn't going to meet them, manipulation or not. I just wonder, what do they need for you? I mean, come on, it's not just a pure love for your blue eyes. Seeing how the whole pack is engaged and hyped, a lot of people putting too much effort. My bet is an organ donation or something material. I mean, I do have pretty sexy blue eyes though, so who knows? Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for laughing in my stepsister's face when she showed up at my place and asking to stay for a while? This happened 3 weeks ago. I, 21 female, was home in my apartment that I share with my two closest friends when my stepsister, 19 female, showed up and asked if she could stay with us for a while. I laughed and told her no and closed the door. She ended up going to my dad and her mom's house where she told them everything, and they are pissed. They said it was reckless and cruel to turn her away without seeing that she was okay, and my dad said he was disappointed in me. I told him I did not want her anywhere she could steal or break something that didn't belong to her. He told me she hasn't done that in years, and I have no right to hold childhood mistakes against her. The last time she broke something that was mine was 2 years ago, when I went to stay for Christmas and she went into my room while I was taking a shower and took my phone, then broke said phone. I pointed this out to him, and he told me I can't stay mad at my sister. I told him I'm not mad at my sister because I don't have one, which he did not take great. Then my stepsister started bugging me with how mean it was that I laughed at her, and how she's changed. I asked if she changed enough to want to apologize for the crap she did, and maybe even pay me back. She said no, and she doesn't need to. I told her then she hasn't really changed. She tried to get me to believe her by her just saying it. All three are currently muted by me, so I don't have to take their crap. Am I the a-hole? Adding more details which I didn't make clear enough. She has constantly stolen and broken things that were mine. She was a child when it started, which you could dismiss. You could say that being 17 when the phone thing happened, she was still a child, valid. But when it is a long pattern of the same behavior, of taking other people's stuff without permission, and then either through carelessness or force break stuff, it makes me not trust her or want her in my place, where I live with others and rent, when her damage would cost me a lot more. She has never apologized or made any effort to make amends for it, so I have no reason to take her word for it. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Trust is hard to earn, yet so easy to break. You could have handled it a bit better instead of just laughing in her face, but I agree with not letting her stay. She only says she's changed, but you haven't seen real evidence of it. Also, how do you break a phone that fast? Did she pick it up and started throwing it at walls? Was it a flip phone that she tried to close backwards? Did she try to use it to scrape ice off her windshield? Like, I'm extremely accident prone and drop things constantly. The only times I've broken a phone are dropped one into a mug of tea by accident, dropped one repeatedly over several years while it was in a case, dropped it face down onto gravel. How do you just wander into somebody's room and just break a phone? I'm genuinely confused about the logistics here. Edit. My point is that it's extremely unlikely to me that this was an accident because again, how? Not the a-hole. You owe her nothing. She's not your dependent and you hold no responsibility to her. Why weren't her parents her first call? I would form a hard boundary. Tell your dad that you will not discuss her anymore. If he tries to bring her up, you will end the conversation. He forced her into your life and now is an adult. You have made the decision to cut her out. I'm taking a bet Mommy and Daddy got tired of her crap and told her to find some place to get lost for a few days, or she had a tantrum and run away. She then decided to crash at Opie's place. Opie's parents wanted a few days of peace, which is why they're pushing back about the brat being back home. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole? Taking in niece and sharing awful texts. My niece is a college senior with a 3.5 GPA with a double major. She is a beautiful young woman that makes the room brighter when she walks in. She has a great wit and even better laugh. For 6 months, my sister-in-law cut down our 20-year-old niece on a daily basis over everything. They didn't like her boyfriend. They didn't like her coming home late. They didn't want her having guests over in their shared home when the parents were gone. During this time, they would routinely make cutting comments comparing her to an aunt that died of a drug overdose, threatened to call the cops over her coming home late from curfew, called her a W on a routine basis, and just blasted her for everything that they didn't believe in their my way is the only way ways. When we noticed our niece was getting really bad with this mental abuse, we decided enough was enough and time to stay with us for a while. Our niece immediately began to flourish, but our relationship with my wife's sister and her husband plummeted. They wanted us to instill rules we wouldn't do, and wanted us to make it hard on our niece so she would go back home. Instead, we gave her a loving and nurturing home with a family that does things together, shows affection, and helps each other out on individual problems. I went from having 3 children to 4, as there is always room for one more at the table. My niece began to flourish, and that is all we cared about. A few weeks later, during our family vacation with our niece in tow, my sister-in-law blew up our phones for 6 straight hours. My wife was getting very upset, and out of frustration, I showed a text to my niece which contained absolutely terrible things said about her by her own mother. I felt it was both BS our family vacation was getting wrecked, and I felt she had a right to see what her mother was saying about her. Our relationship continued to deteriorate with my sister-in-law. We continuously encouraged our niece to repair the relationship, and after a few months, while still living with us, our niece began seeing her parents for meals. It was during this time my niece was told that my daughter was an ass by my niece's grandfather and that my niece should get out of my house. Because of this, we cut off our 17-year-old daughter from seeing them until they apologized, which they have refused to do. During this refusal, I admitted, actually proudly, about sharing the text because there is only so much a man can take, and after learning they called my daughter an ass, they needed something in return. Now they are saying I am the a-hole. What do you think? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law's acts can only be described as utterly abusive and inconsiderate. That being said, I would be careful about sharing your niece the texts because it could make her mental health worse. She may have a right to know what is being said, but it may do more harm, possibly for years, in the long run. Thank you for taking the time to weigh in. This has been a very tough situation for all of us. My niece is thriving now, so I know we did right by her. See, that's where I'm having a hard time deciding if this is not the a-hole or everyone sucks here. I think it's great that you're there for your niece and trying to help her through all this. But why, when you were trying to get her away from the emotional abuse, would you show her those text messages? And don't say because you felt she deserved to see what they were saying about her because that's BS. She had to listen to that while she lived with them. I'm sure she realized that they were being a-holes. I showed the texts to my niece which contained absolutely terrible things said about her by her own mother. We continuously encouraged our niece to repair the relationship. Stop doing that. They're abusive towards her. She doesn't need to know about them. You should go no contact. Not the a-hole. Thank you. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not paying for my neighbor's dog's child support? Yes, you read that right. This story is going to sound ridiculous, especially with that story from yesterday about the dogs cheating, but I assure you this isn't a nest post. My neighbor's dog recently got pregnant and she claims my dog did it, which is likely because her dog often escaped into my yard and she lets her dog roam around it. It's annoying because her dog dumps in my yard. Well, now that she's pregnant, she's pissed because hers was a purebred and she wanted to breed it. She says she's entitled to financial compensation, and I'll have to pay child support for the pups as it'll cost her to take care of them. I laughed my butt off and said fat chance, and no way in hell I'm paying for her dog's child support, and this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. She's threatening legal action, and I'm pretty sure she can't do anything. She did nothing to stop her dog from entering my yard and often encouraged it. She just assumed my dog was neutered. She can't prove my dog impregnated hers. And lastly, I don't think child support works for dogs. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. This is looking interesting. Do you get half the profits when she sells the puppies? Exactly the deal. Opie should get it in writing. Curious if the neighbor will bring it up again. Not the a-hole. If she wanted her dog to breed with specific dogs, she should not have let it roam free. Also, what's with the was a purebred nonsense? It's not like the dog's genes are now altered. If it breeds with another purebred dog of the same race, the result will be purebred puppies. I know it's a thing in the breeding world, but it's stupid as hell. I think she's just referring to the fact that there is a maximum number of litters a female dog can have, and now one of those litters will be less profitable because they won't be purebred. She's still clearly the a-hole here, though. Everyone sucks here. It's dumb of her to demand child support for a dog, but if you don't want your dog making puppies, you should have neutered him. There are too many dogs in the world in the first place. Did you miss the part about the neighbor letting their dog roam around Opie's yard without permission? Maybe the neighbor should have had their dog fixed if they wanted to be responsible, not an a-hole. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my nephew his presents were from me and not his dad? So, I bought Christmas presents for my nephews, 8 plus 14, and gave them to my brother since I won't be seeing them for Christmas this year. They had tags on them that said, To XXX, love, and XXX. Well, the 14-year-old's birthday was 3 days ago, so he opened one of his birthday presents from his dad, my brother. Then the 8-year-old got jealous, so I let him open one of his Christmas presents from me. Then I guess he just let them both open everything. On his birthday, I asked my nephew what he got. He proceeded to tell me he got an RC helicopter, a card game, and a game for his Xbox, 2 of which were what I gave him. So I was confused and asked if he opened a Christmas-wrapped gift. He said yeah, he and his brother just opened them on his birthday. I said, oh, okay, well, I hope you liked what I got you. I'm not sure what teenagers are into nowadays. And he said, huh? Dad said he bought those. I was confused, so after the conversation, I texted my brother about it. He was upset I ended up telling my nephew and said, money's tight this year. I wanted them to think I was able to give them a good Christmas, and you ruined it. Thanks. And hung up. I'm so mad and confused. Logically, I know the point is that they got presents, but like, damn, I'm still mad because now they think I didn't give them anything for Christmas either. Am I the a-hole? Should I have talked to my brother first before telling my nephew they were from me? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your brother should have talked to you before giving his children the present you gave them. I understand your brother being tight on money, but they could have given their children cheaper presents instead of lying to them. To be honest, this is why I always wrap the cards into presents so people can't claim the gift without asking. Not the a-hole. Your brother is the a-hole for real. He straight up lied to his children and blamed you for it. Yeah, money is tight, but he is not the only one struggling. Also, his children are old enough to understand that this year is different, so he just should be honest with them. Also, I don't see the point why they were allowed to open their Christmas presents on the birthday of one of them. Like, now they get nothing for Christmas. Your brother messed up on many different levels. Would still demand from brother to be honest with the kids, or I will be honest with them if he is not. I am happy to bet brother is going to ask everyone to buy them new presents for Christmas, and he will lie to his kids again that those are from him. No. Brother should have talked to you from day one and asked if you were on board with doing this. If you said no, then so be it. You have no expectation to need to clear the truth on something so basic with anyone. Not the a-hole. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for celebrating my anniversary despite what happened at my wedding? My husband and I had our wedding last year. The venue was beautiful and bordered a lake. Unfortunately, during the reception, one of the young children snuck away from their parents and decided to go for a swim, despite not being able to. This was tragic and devastating, and obviously cut the day short. We haven't really spoken to the parents since then, as we weren't close to them aside from seeing them on holidays, which haven't happened this year. We're still Facebook friends though. When our first anniversary came, I made a post celebrating our anniversary with a few wedding photos. I didn't think anything of it until the comments came flooding in. I woke up to 30 comments and 15 missed calls. The top comment was from the mother of the child, who was outraged about it. She wrote a very long comment about how my post was disrespectful of the tragedy that had happened that day, and how dare I post that and not mention her child, and of course talking to her first. 30 comments later, and it was clear that the entire family had clearly started to take sides in a battle I didn't realize I created. As of today, we're at 150 comments. My friends and my parents are involved too. Half of his family is screaming for me to take it down, apologize to the parents, and show more respect, possibly by even celebrating our anniversary on a different day. Some of the family think that we should still be able to celebrate our anniversary in the actual day, but just keep it offline to keep the peace. I don't think I did anything wrong with my post, and I feel like we should be allowed to celebrate our anniversary just like anyone else. I'm not celebrating the tragedy, I'm celebrating my wedding. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here, but for crying out loud, take the post down. On one hand is a family with a dead child facing the 1-year anniversary of their loss. Unimaginable pain. On the other hand is your need to have people comment on how pretty your wedding was and tell you happy anniversary. Their pain far outweighs your needs for likes. Why you didn't block the family of the dead child from your post is beyond my ability to comprehend. As soon as you saw it was causing pain, you delete the post. Of course, you can celebrate your anniversary all you want, just not visible to these people who have a dead child. Show compassion. I have to agree here. We weren't that close isn't exactly a great excuse for ignoring that someone who will see this post lost their child during this event. You're the a-hole. Something awful happened at your wedding. It wasn't your fault, but it's something that you have to deal with. I'm very sorry that you will never be able to have a normal anniversary, but that's a small burden compared to having to deal with the loss of a child. Those that say you should just celebrate privately are absolutely correct. Do not put anything celebratory where the grieving parents can see it. People have been celebrating anniversaries for centuries before Facebook existed. You'll survive without making public announcements of your love for friends to see. I can't believe it took this long of scrolling to find a you're the a-hole. I think your last sentence hits the nail on the head. You became the a-hole the moment all hell broke loose on your post, and you didn't have the decency to delete it completely. The fact that OP cannot actually say the words, "A child died at my wedding," means that they know how upsetting this is, yet chose to put this into the face of the grieving parents. You're the a-hole to the max. Edit. I have changed the post to only be visible to me and deleted all comments to try to stop the arguing. But from the email we just received, those comments were just a symptom of a larger problem. My mother-in-law sent us an email with, from what I can tell, roughly 3/4 of my husband's family carbon copied on it. His parents, grandparents, and the parents of the child are not only in the different day camp, but they are also demanding a second wedding. According to them, they've kept their silence for so long due to shock and being distracted by everything else going on this year, but they feel that because of what happened, we aren't really married yet in the family. They understand that weddings are expensive, so they, husband's parents, offered to completely pay for his second wedding that will be the real wedding in his family's eyes. And because it may be a year or two before this can be done safely, they will tolerate us living in sin indefinitely due to the circumstances. My husband hates arguing with his family, And I'm not sure how I would even approach this with my family without being laughed out of the room. So now we need to talk about what to do with this. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not sharing my inheritance with my cousins? My paternal grandparents died in a car accident when I was a child. In their will, they left their house, a lakefront cabin, to their grandchildren. At the time, that was just me. My parents had barely hung onto their own house in the recession and didn't trust the stock market, so they turned the cabin into a rental. The plan was that when I went to college, I could sell it for a hopefully higher price, plus have whatever rental income it had made. It was a good choice. By the time I graduated high school, the cabin had made enough to pay for almost 2/3 of tuition. I decided that rather than sell it, I'd use student loans and pay them off with a future rental income. I'm a junior now, and if things keep on as they are, I will pay off the loans 2 years after I graduate. The trouble started a year ago when my paternal aunt married a man with 2 teenage sons. They'd used the cabin a few times before the marriage, as I always let family use it, but after they started going monthly. I tried to be patient because I knew COVID was making us all steer crazy, but their visits made it difficult for me to sanitize the cabin. We started having quibbles over when they could go. Then I went up to prep for a new client and I found a mess, one made after I cleaned up for my last guest. The keypad logs show my aunt's code. She had not told me her family would be there. I called her to ask why she hadn't asked to use the cabin or cleaned up, and she said we should talk in person. My parents and I go to her backyard, social distancing and all, and she first made my cousins apologize for leaving the cabin a mess. They revealed they were there alone, and I told them that can't happen. No one under 18 can stay in the cabin unsupervised per the rental license. Rather than address this, she told me she was very frustrated with how I treated a family cabin like it was mine alone. It was all for the grandchildren, so her sons now owned a third each. I almost passed out, but my parents jumped in and told her no, that's not how inheritance worked. They had specifically asked the estate lawyer about this, and she said that beneficiaries had a time limit to claim their inheritance, and once it was distributed, it was final. The cabin was mine alone, legally. My aunt freaked out and said I was being greedy. Grandma and Grandpa wanted us to share, and I should teach my cousins the business so that the cabin could pay for their college too. It became a big fight, and my uncle asked us to leave. Now, I'm very torn. On the one hand, I love my cabin, and I worked really hard to build my business. At this point, I handled all bookings, cleaning, and maintenance. But on the other hand, if my grandparents had died today instead of over a decade ago, my cousins would have a share. So, am I standing up for myself by keeping the cabin, or am I being a greedy a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your parents are correct. That is entirely your cabin. Change the locks on the cabin and no longer allow your aunt or her family access. They are trying to take something of yours to which they have absolutely no right. Also, your aunt gave her code to her stepson so they could party at your cabin without adult supervision. You need to respond by blocking their access. Not the a-hole. Also, they are step-grandchildren, not bio-grandchildren. They have no claim of inheritance. Haha, not the a-hole. Your parents are right. That's not how it works, and you have no blood relation to them, therefore, there's no legal obligation times 2. You don't even know if your grandparents would have given them any inheritance. For all you know, they could have only wanted the cabin to stay in the blood relative family. Don't give them a damn thing. Not the a-hole. Absolutely not greedy at all. Your parents are correct in stating that that's not how inheritance works, meaning it's settled at the time probate is closed. Greedy is what your new step-siblings are being. Don't feel bad and just tell them, nice try. They are not familiar to your grandparents. The husband came with the kids. Would be completely different if they were your aunt's biological children. Change the code to the security system fast, or they might just move in. What if she has a baby now? Do you think I should give that child half the cabin? And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you with the next one. Stay safe.